Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Shane. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man, I can't tell you how many people have engaged and sent feedback and all that. So I want to thank everybody for the, of course, I'm talking about the quarterback rankings that we did last episode. Yep. If you missed it, go back and check that out. It's doing great on all our analytics and everything. So, but as per usual, Shane, people do not read the fine print on those. You know what?
Never do. I knew it was going to be a problem, so that's why I've tried to avoid online altogether. I'd pop in every now and then, and honestly, Mike, not as bad as I thought it was going to be, you know? I mean, even Florida Gator fans were like, well, I mean, he's kind of got a point. You know, it's like, well, let's let him prove it here. I think the biggest argument that I saw on there was the Mississippi schools. You know, it was, why is Dart ahead of Rogers? And and upon further review, I was kind of like, maybe they're onto something there. But Mike, yeah, it's always one of my favorite lists, but it's also one of my favorite times to avoid Twitter. And I'm hungover, Mike, so a little hair of the dog here too, you know. It's been a rough day, brother. 4th of July was great. I know you had an awesome 4th. I hope the listeners had an awesome 4th, but I am dragging a little bit, man. I can't remember who it said, but they said this was the most Monday-ish Wednesday ever, and that's exactly what it felt like, man, just dragging.
Yeah, well, we're going to pick everybody up, Shane, by talking them LSU Tigers up so high on Brian Kelly and company in year 2. Yeah. But before we get to our latest team preview, we only got a couple left, Shane. We're winding down here. This is going to be the first year, hopefully, fingers crossed, that we get all 14 SEC teams in. Last year we fell short, but we got time before Media Days. But speaking of Media Days, I wanted to give everybody a reminder. Don't forget, Saturday, July 15th, 3 to 6 Eastern, 3 to 6 Central Time. I don't even know what time this thing is, Shane. Bearded Iris, come hang out with us. Cousin Shane and I are going to be there. It's going to be an SEC Media Days tailgate. It's the Saturday before Media Days. Bearded Iris Brewing, right next to Top Golf here. I'll throw up the address on the screen. But, man, it's going to be a good time. You know what?
Yes, and just again, reminder, it's an awesome little town to hang out in. Love to hang out with the cousins and just, shoot the shit. That's all this is. Drink some cold beer, talk some football, point at Mikey and make fun of all his bad hot takes, That's what this is about. But, again, it's kicking off college football, man. The SEC Media Days is right here, right on us. We're almost a little over a month away from college football, and we just want to celebrate with you guys. So be sure to get down there, Bearded Iris, 3 to 6 Central Time. Love to see all of you.
Absolutely. Well, Shane, let's get into this LSU preview. And as we like to do, Shane, quick recap of what happened last season, of course. Came out of nowhere, won the SEC West in Brian Kelly's first season. Who in the world could have imagined that? Even the biggest LSU homer, I think, conceded the division to Alabama last season. But it was them Tigers, Shane, because they beat Alabama in overtime at home. That won them the West. But, it was not an easy road. Lost the opener to Florida State. That was the game where they were basically getting dominated for 3 quarters. And then they made a late rally, blocked extra point, lost them the game. Lost against Tennessee at home. That was a pretty dominant loss there. Lost to A&M at the end of the season. That was tough. Got destroyed by Georgia in the SEC championship. But they bounced right back, Shane, and just absolutely obliterated Purdue in the Citrus Bowl to give Brian Kelly and company a 10-4 record in his debut season. And, I think the season as a whole, Shane, just kind of showed how far they have to come, but their ability to bounce back from disappointments, get coached up, and, position groups like the offensive line was a train wreck to start. That was a strength at the end. Jaden Daniels, to me, was a complete question mark. He exited the season, now entering the next one as one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. And I think it's all the traits you want from a growing program we saw last year in LSU.
Yeah, and I think that's what we got last year with LSU was just a little inconsistency, but we expected that. I mean, you got a new coach, new team. There's going to be some problems right out of the gate. They had it with Florida State, but it felt like toward the end of that game they came alive. And if you could summarize their season, it was almost like it was that Florida State game. Like they finally figured it out along the way, and that's why they made it to an SEC championship, Mike. They had a lot of great games. They had a lot of mistakes earlier in the season I think they'd like to have back. But moving into year 2 of Kelly's program here, I think they're in great shape, brother. I love the talent they're bringing back. I love the coaching staff here. LSU's dangerous again, Mike.
Oh, yeah, no question, Shane. And it's thanks to Brian Kelly, who, let's go to the coaches next, Shane. This is incredible. 273 wins, and this is just FBS football. He's won national championships, multiple national championships at Grand Valley State, I think it's called, lower level. So, 273 wins. He's the all-time winningest coach right now in college football, Shane, if you include his lower-level wins. 100 losses, 2 ties. He'd been coaching so long, Shane, they had ties back in. He was obviously 10-4 last year. But how about this, Shane? This is kind of weird. I didn't realize this till I was going back looking at the schedules. 2-2 against top 25 teams last season, but 2-2 against top 10. So every ranked team LSU played last year was in the top 10. They didn't face anyone outside the top 10 when we're talking just ranked opponents. So 2-2 against top 10, not a terrible record in your debut. 6-1 at home. Tennessee was at 1 loss. 3-1 on the road. The only loss there was A&M at the end of the season. Just 1-2 in neutral site games though. So that's how we got to that 10-2. And the best news for all LSU fans, Shane, they fired the special teams coordinator. Get his ass out of here. Bringing in a new one, John Jancic. That's a name Tennessee fans, Georgia fans know well. Former defensive coordinator on Rocky Top and in Athens. He was defensive coordinator Cincinnati, defensive coordinator Colorado State. And again, he's just coaching linebackers and special teams. So I like this hire by LSU.
Yeah.
We had to change the special teams. And then the only other coaching staff change, Shane, defensive line coach Jimmy Lindsey. He was at South Carolina the last 2 years. They just had a 3rd-round draft pick, Zach Pickens, so he got coached up by Coach Lindsey. And I think it's good for LSU not to have a ton of turnover in the coaching staff after last season having to go through a total rebuild, so to speak, on the coaching staff.
Yeah, man. And I mean, just what Kelly did last year is, I mean, you just can't explain how that just never happens. It never happens in the SEC, Mike. Somebody comes in and takes over a program where you got a fired coach. It's just, you don't ramp up that quick. And I think what's really unique about this situation, Mike, and I'm kind of curious your take on this. Expectations when you got a new coach, you're thinking at the end of year 2, year 3, that's when we're expecting to start winning and competing against the top dogs in the SEC. But given how last year happened, I mean, is the expectations extremely high already for Brian Kelly, or do you think there's still some room for error?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think certainly I'm an outlier, Shane, picking LSU to win it all. But that's mainly because we all know the juggernaut Georgia is. So I'm not sitting here saying, yeah, they're vastly better than Georgia. I mean, at this point in time last year, we weren't saying Georgia was going to repeat. So I think we all look at this through the lens of what we already know and what's already happened. But it's hard to project forward. But that's kind of what I'm having to do there. I think it helps them that at least in my mind, not everybody's mind, but in my mind, Shane, Alabama has taken it's a baby step, but it is back in my mind. It's a baby step back, so to speak. A&M's not realized their potential. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. I think you'd be fooling yourselves if you think they've got as much overall talent as LSU. Doesn't mean they can't beat them, but they're significantly not overall as talented roster. Auburn's got a new coach, so I mean there's a lot to suggest that LSU should be the favorite, and That's one of the biggest things I'm going to be curious to know at Media Day, Shane. Is LSU the pick or is Alabama the pick out of the West? We already know mine. Well, we'll get to that, I guess, on a future episode. But hell, I'm sitting here saying they're going to win it all. So clearly, I have LSU as the team to beat out of the West. But I don't think everybody's going to be saying that.
Yeah. I was just curious, man, because it feels like expectations are real high. Like he's been down there for 5 years now, and it's just year 2, and there's still going to be some growing pains, but maybe they are further along. I mean, if we're going off SEC Mike's prediction here, maybe I'm a few years behind.
All right, so let's get to the returning production, and here's a big reason why I love them LSU Tigers, Shane. 99.8% of the passing yards is back, of course, led by Jaden Daniels. 2,913 passing yards last year. 97% of the rushing is back, led by Jaden Daniels again, 885 yards. 66.8% of the receiving yards. Malik Neighbors had 1,017 receiving yards last year. 4 starters back on the offensive line and 5 linemen back with starting experience in their past. And, of course, the offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock, is also back. LSU is one of only 2 SEC teams, Shane, with the quarterback and offensive coordinator back, or starting quarterback from last year. So, LSU's offense was definitely not any kind of liability last year. So I think we could be talking, top 2, top 3 offense in the entire SEC and top 5 in the country with LSU. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a very, very, very dangerous offense, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was dangerous last year, and they're all coming back. So I think that offensive line's key, and, that's something, when you have a Heisman front runner like Daniels, there wasn't a lot of change in front of him. And I think that's probably not mentioned enough. This offense is going to be scary. They're going to put up a ton of points, and they're deeper. That's another one. Later in the season, it seems like they kind of limped into a few of those games. I think they've built some depth around those boys as well.
Right. Now, the other side of the ball, not as impressive, at least on paper. Got some star power, but lost 5 of our top 8 tacklers on defense. 58% of the sack production is back, so a little over half. Harold Perkins led the team last year, 7.5 sacks. But only a third of the interceptions are back for LSU. Now, how did they shore up the defense, Shane? You guessed it, the transfer portal. So let's get to the transfer first. We like to start with the guys leaving. And this is another reason I like LSU, Shane. The guys they lost, not a lot of key contributors here or anything. So obviously they lost Walker Howard, the young quarterback. He was not going to play this year. That could kill you down the line, particularly if he's a star at Ole Miss. That's LSU fans will never get over that. But that doesn't affect you this year because we got 2 quality quarterbacks. Linebacker Demario Tolan transferred to Auburn. Receiver Jack Besh left for TCU. And offensive lineman Marcus Dumerville left for Maryland. Now, they had a couple other guys leave, but they all went to lower UNLV, SMU, Campbell, Kansas. I mean, on and on and on. Not a lot of contributors lost aside from the ones I potentially mentioned. But here, buddy, buckle up because they have loaded up on the transfer portal just like they did last year.
Yep.
That kind of equipped this team to win the West. And for me, Shane, it starts with Omar Spates from Oregon State. He was all Pac-12 first-team linebacker, Shane. He said, I wanted to go somewhere where they have a chance to win a national championship. That's why he's here. 39 starts at Oregon State, 308 tackles. That'd make him all top 10 in LSU history with that many tackles, Shane. 6 foot, 233 pound. He's going to start right away at the middle linebacker spot. Running back, we needed a little bit of help here, Shane. Logan Diggs from Notre Dame played for Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. He was the second leading rusher at Notre Dame last year, 821 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaged 5 yards per carry, so very good back.
How bad does Notre Dame hate SEC? I mean, we're still in coaches, we're still in players. It's like Notre Dame is just gutted. So I bet we are up that list.
Yeah.
When do they play an SEC team again? What don't they got one coming up? Was it Texas next year or something? I can't remember. It seems like we got some Notre Dame games coming up. But yeah, boy, they hate the SEC. I just think. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
there.
let me fire that up. I can get that real quick here. Independent Notre Dame future. Let's see. 20. Ooh, you nailed it, Shane. 2024 opening weekend. Notre Dame at. Who do you want to take a guess? It's SEC West. You know, we won't have the West in 2024, but we got it on the schedule here.
Shit, I don't know. Arkansas?
Oh, close. A&M.
A&M. Oh, man. Oh, that'd be a good one. Yeah.
But check this out, Shane. In 2025, they host A&M. 2 weeks later, go to Arkansas. So, yeah. Man, Notre Dame's, they're going to be loaded up with these SEC losses.
That's just
here,
it's all it is tryouts, you know? You ain't going to win, but we're going to see who your best players are while you're down here.
Well, speaking of A&M, Shay, that's where LSU went and got perhaps their best defensive back now. Denver Harris, the former 5-star, was only at A&M for just one season. He's elite, Shane, at driving in the parking lot, fast as hell. 14 tackles.
Georgia didn't want him? I mean, come on.
Didn't play a ton at A&M in his 1 year, but Brian Kelly in the spring, Shane, he says, this kid's got no chance. Either he makes it here or he's not going to make it. So, hey, this is his opportunity to prove himself of that 5-star billing. They also went up to Syracuse, Shane, and landed a corner, Deuce Chestnut, 83 tackles, 4 picks, 13 pass breakups the last 2 years. He was a freshman, All-American 2 years ago, and runner-up for ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year. So, big-time player.
Sounds like a country singer, too, don't he?
Deuce Chestnut.
Yeah.
Another defensive back from Ohio State, Shane, J.K. Johnson, 20 tackles in 2 seasons at Ohio State. And how about this? LSU's corners coach, Robert Steeples, that was his high school head coach. So J.K. Johnson reuniting there. And then this guy, I hear great things about him, Shane, Zy Alexander, who played at Southeast Louisiana, lower level, but 2-time FCS All-American cornerback here. So loaded up with defensive backs that could be some big-time players. They're going to need that help. They also added a receiver from Alabama, Aaron Anderson, originally from LSU. He was the number 4 receiver in the country a year ago. Didn't make much of an impact at Alabama in his 1 season. Now he's back home at LSU. They added a bunch of players, Shane, in the defensive front 7. Ovi, I'm going to butcher this one. Ovi Ohofu. This is weird, Shane. I had to double check my math here. 2 seasons at Texas, 3 seasons at Notre Dame. Now he's got 1 at LSU. So, I mean, he's playing for Brian Kelly, multiple schools here. 96 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks at Texas. Now he's going to be anchoring down probably a defensive end position here at LSU. A defensive lineman from Arizona, Paris Schnaud, 6'5", 290 pounds. Ooh, boy, Shane, 39 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles last year. Former West Virginia lineman Jordan Jefferson, 6'3", 310 pounds, Shane. He's 40 career games, 54 tackles, 14.5 tackles for loss. Last year had 9.5 tackles for loss. Former Florida lineman Jalen Lee, 6'2", 299 pounds, 25 games played for the Gators. And then they added an Oregon lineman, Braden Swinson, 35 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks during his time at Oregon. So, buddy, I don't know if any of these guys are going to come in here and be like elite defensive linemen in the SEC, but when you add 6 defensive linemen, 6 defensive backs, you have shored up depth and talent issues that you may have had on the roster.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And again, I know we lost a lot on defense, but I'm not I mean, how scared? That's this day and age. It's just scoring more points. It feels like,
Right.
and you look at the games they lost last year, or even won. There's games they're giving up 30, 40 points a game, and it's like, yeah, we don't need a. I mean, we're not looking for a lockdown defense. We're looking for some depth and some key positions. A bend, don't break mentality, but create a few mistakes along the way. I think that's the recipe for LSU here, and I think they shored up some of those positions in the portal.
And I think the fact, Shane, that they proved last season that they can take a ton of transfers like this, and again, they were not elite year round by any means, but how it's difficult to bring in a new quarterback,
Yeah,
and bring in all these defensive backs from across the country, and on and on and on. Yet they meshed all those pieces together. If they can do it again, they're going to live up to the hype that I'm giving them here, Shane. They also signed the number 6 recruiting class in the country. That's the third best class in the SEC. A couple of 5-stars, Shane. Offensive lineman, Balance Hurd. How about that name, Shane? And he's the number 3 offensive tackle. So if he can balance the edge out there, he's going to be elite.
Shit, you've been hanging around me too much, man.
The number 6 edge defender in the country, Shane, Deshaun Womack, so a pair of 5-stars, and then a ton of 4-stars, but I'm only going to mention a few here. The number 5 safety, Tavian Tivano, the number 5 interior offensive lineman, DJ Chester, number 12 receiver in the country, Jalen Brown, and the number 15 receiver in the country, Shelton Sampson, along with, like I said, about 20 other 4-stars,
Yeah.
but these were the highest rated guys. At LSU, much like Georgia and Alabama, we're not signing a ton of freshmen and expecting them all to play.
Right.
We want a handful to contribute immediately and by their second and third years be stars of the team. But a lot of these guys will certainly play a role for LSU, particularly on special teams, I would think, this year.
Well, and that's going to be Kelly's recipe in the long run is just recruiting. The portal's something that's helping him out right now, but I don't think that's the later in life. We go 3-4 years from now. I truly believe Kelly's just going to be going in for a handful of positions that he really needs.
Right.
Not just an abundance of bodies.
Mm-hmm. And, credit him for doing that, Shane, and knowing what has to be done because, again, I mean, the contract they gave him, he could be like some other coaches in the SEC, Shane, and saying, well, year 6, that's a year. No. I mean, they're trying to fill the pieces now because he's trying to win. He's trying to win a national championship. And you utilize the tools that are in front of you, Shane, and they certainly utilized the transfer portal extremely well last year. You know what?
Oh, yeah.
All right, Shane, so let's rank, or my rankings here, of the offensive position groups, Shane, and I think it's easy on offense. Quarterbacks, number 1. And this is a factor of having good quarterbacks, but also being very deep. Of course, Jane Daniels mentioned him already. I think he's the second best quarterback in the SEC this year, and you could even talk me into him being the first quarterback in the SEC. Led the team in rushing, 2,900 passing yards, 17 touchdowns. Garrett Nussmeier, possibly the best backup in the entire SEC. And then freshman Ricky Collins, touted kid, 4-star prospect. So we don't go 4 or 5 deep like some SEC quarterback rooms, but I think our 3 here are standouts for them Tigers. Any issue with quarterback being at the top of my list for LSU?
No, quarterback is definitely where I'm at here, Mike. And in fact, I was trying to look. We were asked a question. There's just a lot of content, and I apologize to the listener. I can't find the exact tweet. But they asked a question about your quarterback list here. Because I think this quarterback room is absolutely loaded, and I think they've probably got the best backup in the country. But if Nussmeier was on any other SEC, like if you were doing your power rankings, where would he have been on this list?
Wow, that's interesting. I guess it really depends on where he went. I know Florida tried desperately to. Hell, he didn't even get in the portal, Shane, but
Right.
he'd be the starter at Florida if he wanted to be right now. I would think. You know what's also funny, Shane? When I was doing that list, how many times did I say it, and I meant it? There's a lot of talent in the SEC at the quarterback position. A lot of people looked at that list and they said, my God, the SEC, so mid. I kept seeing that mid. They got no players. I mean, I think they legitimately got 9 guys that could be outstanding quarterbacks. So I would throw Nussmeier in that mix from 3 to 9.
Yeah.
I mean, you could talk. It depends on where he's going to go. Like if he was at Kentucky instead of Devin Leary.
Yeah.
Maybe I put him, 5, 6 in the SEC, something like that. So it really depends on the fit, but firmly in that second tier of quarterbacks, which is not far from the top.
Okay. Yeah. One second, Mark. I almost got him pulled up. I just want to give him a shout out because that was such a good question, and I didn't want to answer it, but when you brought this up, I was like, oh shit, I'm curious what Mike would have said. Oh well, he's got a long one here. All right, his name's more in sorrow than anger. So at so what shit, I can't say all that, Mike. This why I don't do those 5-star reviews anymore, Mike. I've got to get some readers, man. I'm getting old, but I appreciate the question, and I thought it was a very good question. And there's a reason he was a hot name floating around. This quarterback room loaded from top to bottom, and I think that's important, man, because one of the things you mentioned, returning rushing production, was Daniels, and you always got that in the back of your mind when you've got a mobile quarterback that runs as often as he does, is what happens if he goes down. And I think LSU doesn't miss a beat.
Right. And also I'm trying to sit here and think, Shane, I mean, if Garrett Nussmeier was Georgia's starting quarterback,
yeah,
I mean, we still don't know what we have in Carson Beck, at least until we actually see it, but I don't think it'd be drastically different.
No.
If he's at Alabama, I think he's probably a top 5 quarterback in the SEC. So a lot of it depends on the fit, but very, very high on Garrett Nussmeier, no doubt. So second position group, Shane, and this was a struggle. I mean, the next couple are kind of razor thin here, but I'm going with the offensive line.
Yeah.
That returns 4 or 5. Offensive line has always been a strength under Brian Kelly during his time at Notre Dame, bringing back 2 all-freshman tackles, Shane. Will Campbell at left tackle, Emory Jones at right tackle. Maybe the 2 best offensive linemen as true freshmen last year in the country. Bringing back our center, who was named most improved player in the spring, Charles Turner. Miles Frazier is back at right guard. Those are our starters. Garrett Dellinger, he's likely to start at left guard. Marlon Martinez, a capable back. And, several touted youngsters behind him. So I think the offensive line is going to be a real strength for LSU this fall.
Oh yeah, and they look good in that spring game, man. They've all put on a little weight. They just look good, and that's one of the things. We were watching the game, and it felt like that rushing was getting going, and that's something LSU's lacked, and man, there was a lot of push up front with those boys. So I'm with you here. Number 2 spot, I'd give the lineman as well.
Right. Now third, Shane, you could really flip a coin here between the running backs and the receivers, but I went with the running backs because they just added that Logan Diggs from Notre Dame. Still not sure about John Emery. Is he on the team? Is he not? I'm counting him because as far as I know, he's on the team, but no guarantees. So that also played a factor. They got Josh Williams back, very capable back, Armani Goodwin, and Noah Cain. So we got 5 running backs here that are solid. Freshman Trey Holly's another one to keep your eyes on. The only thing here, and I'm not trying to knock any of these guys, Shane, but for a long time, LSU. When I think of LSU, I think of elite defensive backs and elite running backs.
Yeah,
and I don't think any of these guys are quite up to that gold standard at LSU, which is making me kind of miss some of the runners we've had in years past. But again, that doesn't mean they're bad players. But maybe just not the elite of the elite like we've seen in Baton Rouge.
Brother, every day I'm putting out one of them big orange walks. And, again, thanks for everybody for the support you guys give me on that one. And when I'm doing these number countdowns, you'd be amazed how many of our LSU running backs. And I have to skip over them because I'm like, damn, we just did LSU. I can't put a Leonard Fournette or a Juice. It's like I got to keep moving until I find someone else. So, yeah, I kind of miss those days. And who knows? one of these kids are going to pop. That's one thing I like about this running back room. They all got a little something different with them. So maybe we'll find one this year.
Mm-hmm. So next I got the receivers, Shane. Great trio here. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Kyron Lacey, breakout candidate after the spring. Looked like a star in the spring game. I mentioned the transfer, Aaron Anderson.
I said
from
Juice.
Alabama.
I meant Guys. Sorry.
Juice.
Still,
we knew what you mean.
Yeah,
we knew what you mean.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know the beer's kicking in here.
And
It's
then
like
we got
juice.
those.
What am I talking about?
We got the freshmen, Jalen Brown, Shelton Sampson, two elite high school prospects coming into this room. So, again, we're not quite as deep. I wish we were maybe one or two deeper at receiver. Maybe I would push them past the running backs in that case. But our starting trio here is pretty stellar.
And this episode of Mike Hates Tight End is brought to you by Coors Light.
Mason Taylor leads the way at tight end. That is the
his
final
dad. Do you
position
not
there.
know who his dad is? And you can't have him higher up on this list, Mike?
He caught the final touchdown in regulation against Bama, and of course the 2-point play. I mean, that's when his legend in Baton Rouge started to grow. I think he has just scratched the surface of his potential, but we just don't got much behind him. Shane Mark Parkway is a touted guy, and they signed another freshman to back him up. But I don't know what we have behind Mason Taylor. I really don't.
Mark Park. That sounds like a made-up name, don't it? Like you just caught him and it's on his fake ID. Mark Parkway, is it?
All right, rating
I'm
the
sorry.
defensive position group, Shane. This was tough because they're all like kind of on the same plane for me. But I'm going linebackers because of
Yeah.
old Harold Perkins there,
Absolutely.
brother. I think he may be the best defensive player in all the country this year. Greg Penn is back. He started every game at linebacker for LSU. And then that transfer from Oregon State, I referenced Omar Spates, could be the best transfer addition across the SEC. But this is another one, Shane, where I don't know if we got elite depth behind these guys. We got two brothers on the team, Shane. How about this? West Weeks and Whit Weeks. I thought it was a typo at first. Two W Weeks. What? One's a junior, one's a freshman, both from Georgia. So shout out to the Weeks family there for sending linebackers to LSU. Sloan Wright, Lane Blue. I just don't know what we got behind those guys, and those guys are even kind of unproven.
Well, how close was the defensive lineman here?
That's the next one up, brother.
Well, I
So-
mean, because I would imagine, because don't get me wrong, I love Perkins and I love this linebacker room, but I also love some of these big uglies up front here. So how close were you real close to maybe putting the defensive line up front?
well, defensive line definitely better depth,
Yeah.
and they got some star power too. So yeah, I mean, you kind of talked me in. Yeah, let's put the defensive line first, Shane.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think so. I mean, just depth alone.
Yeah, Mason Smith, maybe the best player on the team, lost all last season aside from the first series against Florida State. He's back. He's healthy to anchor this D-line. Makai Wingo was an All-American. He right next to Mason Smith. Come on now. We got some great depth in Savion Jones, Quincy Wiggins, Paris Shane, and Jacoby Gilroy. And then all these dang transfers, Shane. Paris Shan from Arizona, Jalen Lee, Florida, Jordan Jefferson, West Virginia, Braden Swinson from Oregon, and Ovi, no way I got that right, from Texas. Yeah, we're very deep, very talented defensive line here. It's going to be relying on some transfers, though, so that makes me a little nervous.
But some disruptors too, man. Some dudes
Yeah.
up front that can make some noise and make it a little bit easier on those linebackers back there. So yeah, this is a nasty front, man.
Mm-hmm. And then the defensive back, Shane, I mean, they've got ultimate potential as well. Two starters back, Greg Brooks and Major Burns, they're back from last year. Latravius Welch and Selvin Banks are back. They played last year. But it's all about these transfers for me, Shane. Denver Harris, Deuce Chestnut, the country singer, J.K. Johnson, and Zy Alexander. If we can get these guys up to speed, we may have a lockdown secondary here, Shane, and considering the talent we got up front. I mean, all these pieces could feed off each other. I mean, I just don't think LSU is going to have some, like, dynamic defense that is shut down. But if they can get up to speed for these key games, I think they can make enough plays to keep LSU in that national championship hunt. And I think that's really what you're hoping for with this unit.
That's it, man. It's kind of like I said earlier. You don't want to limit possessions. You want to create a little havoc, maybe create some turnovers up front, and, have a bend, not break. I know that's so cliche and people get tired of hearing it, but that's exactly what LSU needs here. It's a little less points given and a little more taken away. So I like this defense. I think this is going to be the most improved body on that side of the football, and it's that secondary. A lot of question marks. That's the only one. If they gel up nice, brother, watch out. LSU could be legit.
Now, as for the specialist, Shane, we've got Damian Ramos back at kicker. He was all SEC freshman team, so solid kicker. And punter Jay Bramblett back for his second season. He transferred down from Notre Dame, Shane, so common theme here. I mean, all these guys, Brian Kelly may be goofy and people think he's a jerk and all this. Well, all these guys are wanting to play for him again and again. So I think that says more about Brian Kelly than anything you're going to read on the internet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, Shane, so one of my favorite parts of these first time doing it this year, ranking the top 10 players like they were on the NCAA video game. And this was tough, Shane, because LSU's got some star power. I'm going Harold Perkins, a linebacker, 97 overall, getting close to that 99 range, Shane, for a second. That's probably too low for Cousin Shade. Jaden Daniels, I gave him a 96. So, I mean, he's elite as well. Mason Smith, the big defensive lineman, giving him a 96 too. Makai Wingo right next to Smith, 95. My God, we got some big men in the trenches.
They're back,
here.
baby. They're back.
Malik Neighbors, the receiver, Shane, giving him a 94. The transfer linebacker from Oregon State, Omar Spates, giving him a 92. The left tackle, Will Campbell, a 90. As just a sophomore. That's great. Brian Thomas, a receiver, giving him a 90. How about this, Shane? Garrett Nussmeier, the backup quarterback, 89. So, I mean, again, very capable backup. And then the right tackle, Emory Jones, giving him an 88. So, like I said, some true star power on this LSU roster. And I think this is, Brian Kelly has also said this spring, hey, he likes his roster, but we got to stay healthy because there's a couple of positions where if disaster strikes, then I don't know if we got the pieces to replace some of these guys. So if we can stay healthy, I mean that's cliche as well. That's what everybody says. But if LSU can do it, man, they have got some All-Americans all over this roster.
Well, I mean, and sometimes when you look at past SEC champs or past national champs, that's sometimes what it boils down to is just lady luck's on your side. So if that happens, then definitely could benefit a team like LSU that may be a little thin in certain positions. But, again, I think they got a lot more depth this year than they did last. So I'm not saying that means they can afford injuries, but, maybe they have a little bit more breathing room there.
Right. So let's look at the camp questions, Shane. I'm kind of curious to know what you think of what LSU's got to answer because across the board, I think we're pretty solid across the roster. Not searching for a ton of answers, but you referenced the secondary already. How does that unit gel? Which transfers come in here and solidify themselves and make a place for them on this defense? I think that's kind of the biggest question mark. And then running back, who emerges there? And maybe we don't need one guy. Maybe it is a committee approach. But I don't know. I just think of LSU, Shane. I think of dynamic, elite running backs, and if they're going to win it all, who's our Clyde Edwards-Helaire to step up to carry that mantle?
Well, that and just overall pressure. I mean, last year nobody was expecting you to win the SEC. Nobody was expecting you to make it to the college football playoffs, and you did. Now we've got Heisman campaigns. We've got Mike out here saying you're going to win a natty. I mean, there's a lot more pressure on you coming into year two. How does Jaden handle that? So, sometimes that can get in these boys' heads, and I think that's one of the biggest camp questions for me is just how he takes over that. And DBs. I think that's the easy answer there. But again, there's going to be a lot of new names that you don't recognize, and how quick does that group come together? So they get that figured out. Like I said, LSU could be a pretty scary team.
Yeah, handling hype. That's a good one, Shane, because we have seen a lot of these SEC teams do not handle the hype very well. You know what?
No.
All right,
I can't handle that. It's like Paul Feinbaum said my name last week. Now I'm freaking out about SEC media days. I don't know if them little chairs up there can hold my fat ass. You know what I'm saying? That's like, why don't you come to my booth there, Paul?
Let's break down the schedule, Shane. Win, loss, or toss for them LSU Tigers. And as always, we got to say it. We got to be very clear here, Shane. We're doing this as LSU homers. What we think the LSU fans truly think, trying to be accurate, but being a little bit of a homer here.
Yeah.
Games that LSU should win this season. You're going to get mad, I think, Shane, because I'm skipping the first game. We'll get to that in a minute. Grambling State, easy win, right? Or should be.
Thought that was right? Green Bay for a second. Yeah, no, that's an easy win right there.
At Mississippi State, trap game, not going to be easy. But LSU fans, they expect to beat Mississippi State.
LSU
every
fans
year.
expect to win this one, definitely.
Right. Arkansas at home again. It's going to be a physical game. Maybe the biggest game on Arkansas' schedule. Well, it certainly will be up until this point. So it ain't going to be easy. But you beat them last year in Fayetteville. LSU fans expect a win in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, close game last year. But there was more, I think, LSU fans upset after that one because they did expect to win that one. Not just win, but destroy them. So, right. This is an expected win as a homer here.
Now, at Ole Miss, Shane, I'm even chalking this up as should be a win. But, I could see some fans being nervous. Rivalry game on the road. This was one of the biggest games of the SEC last year, believe it or not, because it was Ole Miss was undefeated, I believe, in the top 10. It was an epic game, but LSU rose to the occasion, and I think their fans expect them to do that on the road this year too.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. This is another win expected with LSU.
Now, we're high as anybody on Missouri, Shane, and this game will be in Columbia the following week. But again, I don't think them LSU fans I don't even think they know anything about Missouri. And they're sitting here saying, Missouri? That's like another bye week. That should be a win. I'm not saying it's right, but I think that's the way they view it.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what Mizzou wants too. But I'm telling you right now, you poll the audience, there's not a Tiger out there, LSU Tiger, doesn't think they should win this one. So give me another one here.
And now, Auburn at home, tricky game. Hugh Freeze taking over, of course. Cannot overlook this game, but considering it's at home, considering it's the first year under a new coach, I think LSU fans got this one circled and saying, man, we can't look ahead, but this should be a win.
Should be a win, Mike. Should be a fun win, too.
Right. Now, Army, this is one where it's like, why in the hell we playing triple option Army and all this? I mean, that's a tricky game 2 weeks before Bama.
He should have texted Heupel and said, how'd you get out of this thing?
But obviously, should be a win. A couple weeks later, Florida at home. You beat Florida on the road. Then, as I'm going through this schedule, Shane, a lot of trap games. These are not slam dunks. You're going to just kill everybody. But you're getting them at home. You're getting them in the right spots, most of them. Florida, that should be a win, right?
Always a close game, Mike. Can't ever count these out, but should be a win right now.
And then, just as I say that, Shane, why are
Speaking of trap games.
Why do we keep scheduling Georgia State? I don't know. But LSU did that the second to last weekend of the season, despite all the horrors that Georgia State has made the SEC suffer. This should be a win as well.
Jeez, SEC's bought these guys stadiums and uniforms, and they just come up here and kick our ass. So, yeah, I am always worried about that. Every time I see that logo, I have nightmares, Mike. So,
and then finally, Shane, you could maybe I'm wrong on this
You
one.
are.
But,
You are.
A&M, it's at home. They killed you last year, so I think the revenge factor, I think what LSU will be playing for by this point in time, I think A&M should be a win, but sounds like you're thinking that's a little bit more of a toss-up.
I'm thinking toss here, Mike, just because, again, they won last year. They're also returning a lot of talent back. And this is it's the end of the season. Rivalry game. It's a lot on the line here. So I would have this as a toss.
Now, I don't have one single game, Shade, that LSU is unlikely to win, which means I only got 2 toss-ups even. Florida State in the opener, away from Baton Rouge. It's in Orlando. And at Alabama. Am I wrong about either of those? Would you switch other of those to a likely win or a likely loss?
I would switch Florida State to a win. And the reason is they're not that good, Mike. you know, fans, you may want to clip this later and then delete it when I prove you wrong. I can see the bookmarks now. But I think last year, and that's what they're going off of. They beat them last year. But that LSU team, if you would have rolled them out there week 12 against Florida State, they would have kicked the shit out of them. So I don't know why we entertain this as a toss. Toss that out of here, Mike. That should be a loss or a win. Win for LSU.
What about at Alabama?
No, that's got to be a toss. That one's a doozy, Mike. And I mean, I'd love to just give them a win here, even as a homer, but deep down inside, all LSU fans know that, man, we just barely got them last year, and that was at home. So what do we do this year, So, but I think they're not as worried as they have been in years past.
All right, so let's go through it, Shane, week by week, predicting the record for LSU as LSU homers. Hell, you laid your case already in the opener. Florida State win. But I will say this, Shane.
Big win.
Again, Florida State's getting all this hype. I think that's perfect for LSU because they beat you last year. It was a fluky game. This is your opportunity. Remember, again, this will be, what is it? I think it's Sunday Night Football before NFL. It's going to be the only game on, nationally televised. Florida State thinks they're winning it all this year, Shane. This is your opportunity to tell the nation that, no, you got the wrong team. And we're significantly better than we were last year, while Florida State's probably equal to worse. I don't know, but I'm right there with you. Give me LSU to win this football game.
Yeah, give me big win here. Because this game was an embarrassment last year for Brian Kelly. I mean, this was his debut in the SEC. LSU looks back at this one. I mean, this is a touchy game, I would imagine, in that locker room. They're not overlooking them this time, brother. They got a bullseye, and this is the only team they're focused on September 3rd. And it's, like I said, it's going to be in Orlando. It's going to be an ass whooping. And then you could go down to Disney and spend all your money out there and have fun with the kids while all the other Seminoles go back home, It's going to be great. Yep. This is going to be such a fun game. And it's a reminder that there is a large gap between SEC and ACC.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason they won in this conference.
And I don't even know what league Grambling is in, Shane, but it don't matter because they're going home with a big loss, right?
Yeah, this is another one. I like Grambling. I've always been a fan of their school, but this one right here is not. I don't think it's going to be a bloodbath, but it is not going to be fun. This is a good chance to get Nussmeier in there.
Now, here's where things really get tricky, Shane. On the road, first true road game in Starkville, Mississippi State, crossroads game annually for both LSU and Mississippi State. First year under Zach Arnett, so not 100% sure what we're going to be getting from this Mississippi State Bulldog team. LSU cannot overlook this team because they're going to give them a one hellacious fight down there in Starkville, but I just think it's too much to ask for Mississippi State to win. But I bet you they cover the spread, whatever I don't know what the line is, but I think it's going to be a very tight game.
And I think, I always worry about games like this because when I look at it last year with LSU, none of them expected to lose to Texas A&M. None of them expected a close game with Arkansas, but it felt like sometimes when they weren't completely dialed in, all of a sudden they found themselves in a dog match. But Mississippi State's going to be one of those. You're at Mississippi State. It's going to be a loud, large. I mean, they're going to be pumped up. They want to beat you because you will be a top 5 team at this point. So, but I still got LSU.
And Mississippi State will probably be undefeated because they got 2 relatively easy games. So a lot on the line for them Bulldogs. Next week, Shane, Arkansas comes to town. They won the last time they played in Baton Rouge. So, again, not a gimme. We love KJ. We love Rocket. Sam Pittman, one of the best in the biz. But, again, I mean, I anticipate LSU to get the win here. But, hey, you said it yourself. I mean, this was a game KJ didn't even play in, and they nearly beat LSU last year. So, rivalry game, Golden Boot. I mean, this, I don't want to call it a toss-up, but it's very, very close, particularly if KJ's on. And, hell, it is a toss-up in my mind. But I still got LSU getting the win.
I tell you, I think if LSU is going to have that perfect run, these next few weeks is going to be tight. I think they're going to do a lot of growing up. The Arkansas game in particular, I know it's going to be close. I know it's going to come down to the wire. I just think as a homer that that there's no reason we should lose to the Razorbacks here. So short of injuries, which in a perfect world will be completely healthy. So give me a win here. Give the Golden Boots coming home with me.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, Shane? I've not really even thought about it really till now, but like you said, the first 4 SEC games, 3 of them are on the road.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a damn minefield, and it continues at Ole Miss. I mean, there's a real opportunity LSU drops one of these games, and it's not going to kill their season, but it has the potential if they let it snowball at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's going to want his revenge. You just never know what you're getting with that damn wild man there.
Yeah.
Man, I really want to pick Ole Miss, but we're LSU homers on this one, Shane. Give me them LSU Tigers, but you cannot overlook, because as I said on the quarterback rankings, I think Jackson Dart's in for a huge season. I think he's going to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the SEC, and you pair that with Junkins, you pair it with Pete Golding, improving the defense. Ole Miss is not going to be an easy out.
No, not at all. And again, I wouldn't call it a trap game either, because I think Ole Miss will be ranked pretty high here. This is going to be a potential. This be a nighttime matchup. I would imagine there's going to be a lot of folks with their eyes on this one. So this will be a good game. Hell of a game, Mike. Oh my God. The amount of points that this thing could do. I mean, this may be a 50-50 game, you know what I'm saying? Coming down to the wire. But as a homer, give me the LSU Tigers here again.
All right, October 7th, Shane, on the road at Missouri. We've talked a lot about Missouri. Outstanding chance. If you don't know about Missouri now, watch out, because they may be 5-0 here. And if LSU's 5-0, one of the best showdowns of the weekend, Missouri defense, LSU offense, probably the matchup of the week in the SEC, October 7th. But give me that offense, Shane. Give me them LSU Tigers. I think they get it done. But again, if Missouri is as good as we think they are, that may help LSU, because they're not going to overlook the Tigers, the Missouri Tigers, that is, of course, if they're undefeated and sitting here at 5-0.
It's so funny. You look at the way you've done this with the wins and the toss and that win. I just see a win sitting there, and I'm like, but it's going to be like pulling teeth, man, to get to that win. You know, this one's going to be one of those that I could see easily being down at half, you know, kind of like the Georgia-Mizzou game last year. Just like, holy, you know, what happened? And then next thing you know, it's like we have maybe that Heisman moment from Jaden Daniels here. So this is going to be a tough little sled of ball games here, but I got LSU. I just think they got too much talent in the long run here, especially on that offensive side. And I love Mizzou's defense, don't get me wrong, but it's the legs of Daniels that I think would help them prevail in this game. So give me a late win for the LSU Tigers here.
Yeah, and a little bit of a murderer's row ends for several weeks in a row here, Shane, with Auburn coming to town. At least you get it at home. Hugh Freeze and the Tigers, they're going to be the ultimate wild card, I really do think, in the SEC this year. So I mean, they could have a losing record and they could still win this football game. I mean, I think they're going to be that kind of a problem for somebody. I don't know if it's LSU. I'm not predicting it here. But, again, I hate to keep repeating myself here, Shane, but we got about 4 or 5 toss-up games in a row. And odds are you're not going to win all your toss-ups, so you got to take care of business, and you certainly got to do it at home. So give me LSU, but I think it may be like an overtime game here.
Really? I feel like this is going to be a Hugh scores first. Auburn goes up 7-0, maybe even 10-0, and then they never score again. You know? That's kind of the way it feels like with me here. I think Death Valley comes alive, and give me LSU with a huge win here.
Yeah, hey, don't completely overlook Army. We got Alabama coming ahead. We do got 2 weeks to prepare for. Thankfully, we got 2 weeks after facing a triple option, Shane, because we may need it. But, man, this is going to be just a headache game. Easy win, but
low scoring, nasty. Don't even know why we do this. You know, you do it to yourself. So, was the check worth it? I don't know. But, Mike, I'm telling you, this is not going to be a fun game to watch, but it will be victorious for the LSU Tigers.
Now, here's the one that we're all waiting for here, Shane. LSU at Alabama. Game of the year out of the SEC West last year, you could argue. What an epic showdown. Brian Kelly came down here, and I love the fact, day one, Shane, he said, I want to coach against Nick Saban. I want to beat him. And I can't do it at Notre Dame. I got to come to LSU to do it. And he did it in year one. It's truly impressive. Can he do it back-to-back years, Shane? I'm picking LSU to win it all, but I'm picking Alabama in this game. I just think everything going into it, and I'm not even that high on Alabama as most are, but I just think, I think they're right now in Tuscaloosa. They're basically counting down to this game, and they're gearing up for it after losing last year. I could be dead wrong, but I do think this will be a great, great matchup, but I think the home field maybe a little too much to overcome. So give me Alabama in this matchup.
Mike, and I'm thinking too, brother, best case scenario. What's the best case scenario that happens for LSU? And in my mind, I just don't see a perfect season. I mean, think about it. The best LSU football team almost lost to Alabama, when they were there. So I'm not saying that this is going to be their loss necessarily. I'm looking at 2 teams. I'm looking at Texas A&M, and I'm looking at Alabama. One of those they drop, and I just think I hate to piggyback off you, but I'm going to go with a loss here as well. I think sometimes Alabama just gets in your head a little bit, and I think that's what we get here. So give me first loss of the year to the Crimson Tide.
And that makes the following week just paramount, Shane, because we have seen it many times before, particularly if Alabama's undefeated after this weekend and they're sitting here in first place in the West. We have seen LSU kind of go into the tank. Now, we didn't see that against, we've only had 1 year of Brian Kelly. So I'm not putting that on him. It's not, you can't hold him to what happened in the past at LSU, but this may be the coaching job of the year to get up for Florida. Who knows what Florida looks like? Billy Napier, this may be the game that he needs to keep his job or build support or do anything. I think this game will mean the world to him. Remember, he wanted the LSU job. I don't even think they considered him when he was dominating at Louisiana. But, that does make sense, not to slight Napier, but if they knew they were going to get Brian Kelly, I mean, the resumes don't even compare at this point in time. So, but this is a personal game to Billy Napier, Shane. I think Florida will give them a real run for their money. But, again, I think Brian Kelly's a true professional. So he'll have his team ready to play. But watch out for them Gators in this matchup. Give me LSU win, but I don't think it's a comfortable win.
Yeah, Mike. I think good teams, they kind of linger on those losses. If that was an Alabama loss, I think you may get a little bit of a hangover here during the Florida Gators, a little slow at the start. But great teams, They just bounce back. And I think that's what LSU has the potential to have here as a great team. One loss does not define your season. And whether it's LSU and Alabama, whether it's LSU and Mizzou or Arkansas or Texas A&M, you lose a game, you're still going to college football playoffs. You're still a top 5 team, man. It's happening. So I think right here they bounce back big. Give me a huge upset, or not an upset, but a huge victory for yeah. I gotta slow down here, Mike. Let me just dial back. All right, big win, LSU Tigers.
Okay. Then following week, Georgia State, tricky game. Shane, we're just judging that off past history. I can't break down Georgia State. You should beat the brakes off them. Let's do that here, and let's get to A&M because that's another.
Yeah.
I called it a win. You called it a toss-up. You're probably right. I mean, if A&M's as good as I think they will be, this could be the game that decides the SEC West this year.
Well, what I like about it is just how they match up. Some of what LSU's really good at defending, Texas A&M's really good at doing, and vice versa. So I think this is going to be a hell of a matchup. If that secondary doesn't figure it out, I mean, the Texas A&M wide receivers are just going to, they're going to have a field day. But if they do figure it out, there's no way you're going to run on these guys. So it's like it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's going to be a freaking awesome matchup. But
before you answer, Shane, let me ask you this. Let's just go with me here. Let's say this scenario plays out where LSU loses at Alabama, but let's say Alabama lost at A&M a couple weeks before.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going into the final week, and it's like a 3-way tie for first, which would mean perhaps LSU, A&M in Baton Rouge decides the SEC West trip to the SEC championship game. Yeah. And, of course, A&M won last year. Who does that favor, you think, that if everything's on the line for this one matchup before you make your decision here, does that favor A&M, who beat them, who's looking for their first trip ever to Atlanta? Does it favor LSU, who's got the home field advantage? I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I think LSU, man. You're at night. It's Death Valley. Everything. You've just went to an SEC championship, and I'm telling you right now, Mike, if that scenario plays out, you can't afford to lose this. You're not mentioned. The College Football Playoff Committee does not say what you want, man. We got to see a prime example of it last year, that whatever happens toward the end of the season is what sticks in their head when trying to pick out who the top 4 teams are. So if you play this game close and lose, or get destroyed, there's no way you're making it to the College Football Playoffs. And I know that's big for A&M because they've never been there. But it's also huge for LSU, and I just think when you boil it down to that simple, it comes down to home field advantage, and there's not a better place to play than Death Valley at night. So I think this is a big one. It's a close one, and as a homer, we're taking it home, baby, and we're going back to the SEC championship.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So 11-1. It depends on what happens with Alabama. They could go undefeated, but it depends on what happens. They got some tough games, too. I think that'll be enough to win the SEC West, but I can't wait to find out this fall. You know what?
Nah, man, I can't either. And, in your scenario, okay, Mike, I'm picking your brain now. You have them going to a natty. That means you would have them beating Georgia? Because there's no way they'd lose to Georgia. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, man. Did you hear that, Bulldogs? Did you hear that?
Georgia gets into the playoff as well somehow. Because I think they'll be
That's
undefeated.
their first loss, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something? You got Alabama with 1 loss, Texas A&M in this scenario 2 losses, but LSU with 1 loss, Georgia with 1 loss. Somebody's getting butt hurt and not getting into that playoff. It may be Saban again. He may be out there just holding that sign up like, this isn't fair. Fix it.
Yeah. Well, buddy, another team preview in the book. Only 3 more to go. You got anything before we hop off the line?
No, man. Again, another great show. I love doing these, and I'm looking forward to it, man. The buzz is in the air. Everybody's wanting to I mean, it's so funny. You put out one like the quarterback thing. You did that a month ago. Nobody even paid attention to you. But now college football is starting to come around. You know what I'm saying? Getting a little upset. Well, if you think you're upset, wait till you hear what Mike picked you and your team. So that'll be coming out a little closer to SEC Media Days. But no, brother, I love this, and I love getting on here, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Absolutely. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you as always. I appreciate all the cousins out there. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right, see you guys. Go Tigers.